And then what happened now is then the main character comes out. When Xianfeng became emperor, Xianfeng, he was pretty much bad at everything, apart from dealing with women. He was very good at dealing with women. And then he had even though he didn't reign for the longest time, he had from the period that he had reigned, he died at 30, and he actually had the highest number of concubines for the period that he ruled. And so in the second year of his rule, he actually had what we call a 选秀女, which is the emperor getting concubines or marrying concubines. And marrying concubine, the system, it's usually you have to be from the Banner clan. The Banner clan is basically the top echelon of society within the minority Manchurians, who are the rulers, the Mongolians, and the Hans, like the Han Chinese, who actually lived around Manchuria really early on, so were part of the system. So, for example, the Dream of Red Lantern, that author is a Banner Han person. Cao Xueqin, it's a Han Banner person. And so every year, from the age of 13 to 17, the girls would be then sent to the palace to be chosen by the emperor. And so they chose, and then so Xianfeng chose a young girl, like in her teens, who is from a family, extremely prominent family. 4 previous empresses, all from the same family. Chose her, a very quiet, a very nice and kind person. And she also, and then the emperor also chose a 17-year-old girl. The 17-year-old girl, her father is kind of like a secretariat who was very fluent in both Manchurian and Han Chinese, like the Chinese writing, but then from a lower end, of the Banner system. And she was very smart, a lady in the Nala clan, the Yehe Nala clan, who is the later Empress Dowager, the main character of Lei Qing, who ruled China for 47 years. And they all joined in. They all went to the palace. They went to the palace, and you have to know the Qing Dynasty had a very strict system in terms of the emperor with his concubines. It's the first thing, if the emperor was interested in, would like to be with a concubine for that night, there would be wooden cards of each woman with the name. And then, so like you have 20 concubines. You would flip one. When you flip one, then that means you've chosen that concubine. Let's say Nala, the 17-year-old girl, at the Empress Dowager. At the time, she was Lan Guiren. So you would flip her card. She would then be stripped naked, taken a bath, and rolled in a blanket, naked, into your room, into the emperor's room. The emperor would then be with her. But actually, being an emperor, being with the lady is actually not that much fun, because every single step of whatever the emperor did must be recorded for historical and political reasons. And so even during the act, a eunuch would be standing there and writing down the process. And right afterwards, the concubine would then be taken away because they don't want the concubine to be sleeping with the emperor for the whole night, because you make sure that the emperor goes back to work and go to sleep early enough for work next day. And so it's a very competitive system with 8 layers. And then the lady I was telling you about, the later Empress Qian from a more prominent family with the 4 empresses in the previous emperors, she was actually promoted to being empress within 6 months. And actually, it turned out that Xianfeng, to get someone as an empress, she was actually very smart, because she later you could see she was magnanimous, like she was very generous, she was very nice. And then, but everybody was still like kind of like fighting for each other. And then, what happened was, Xianfeng, even though he had a lot of women and did the act a lot, didn't didn't have many kids. Partly is because if you look at what's interesting with the dynasties is that as the dynasty went on, emperors had fewer and fewer kids. So, for example, like the first emperor that ruled the main Han area in the Qing Dynasty, Emperor Sun Tzu, he died at 24. But when he died at 24, he had 9 kids. He had 9 sons and 5 daughters. Kangxi, who lived until 69, had 35 sons and 20 daughters. But Xianfeng, at the age at 24, so at the age that where his ancestor had already had 14 kids, had no kids. Don't know why. It's not like he didn't do anything. He was very busy, but he had no kids. And then so this emperor, this Nala, this Lan Guiren, the father with the secretary, she had actually serious issues with her period. Like the menstrual cycle was not stable, but she actually gained the favor of Xianfeng because she was the only person within the whole group of the women that Xianfeng chose that loved to read. And so in Yuanmingyuan, in the summer palace, when everybody was kind of like just playing mahjong and everything, this young girl was actually reading a book called 资治通鉴, which is the main history book to talk about the success and failure of a ruler. And so Xianfeng found her to be very interesting and talked to her and then be with her. And when I be with her, she said, my stomach doesn't feel so good most of the time. Can I get a doctor to see me? Because if you go through the empress is not going to help you, right? Like there's absolutely no incentive to help you. So she went directly through the emperor, and the emperor and got the doctors to help him. And from the historical records of the doctors, you realize it's about stabilizing her menstrual cycle. And after taking that medicine, she was pregnant and had a son, the one and only son that the emperor had. And so she rose up really quickly. And when she rose up really quickly, what's interesting is Xianfeng liked to play around, liked to fool around with women more than he liked to work. So what happened was, and the country was going in shambles. There was the Southern Farmer Rebellion, and then there was like foreign pressure and all that. He actually, what's interesting with this lady, the later Empress Dowager, how she came to power is, or Lan Guiren or Yi Guifei now, the Nala lady. It's kind of confusing because her real name was never recorded, because when she was young, her name was way too unimportant to be recorded, and then afterwards her status is way too important to have her name ever uttered. So she, because her father was was more of in a secretariat role, he was bilingual in both Mandarin and Manchurian. And so his daughter was also fluent in both. So she was able to read all the documents that Xianfeng did not want to read. And if you look at the old pictures of Cixi, she wasn't very pretty at all. But she had long nails. So the legend goes that when she reads all the documents that came to the emperor, the less important documents, if using her nails, I can see from really long nails. If the nail is horizontal, it means that the emperor would just write 知道了, which means I know. I know basically it's like I'm aware of the situation. If it's vertical, it means 意, which means that you keep on discussing about the topic. And so after reading the documents, she would do that. She would do that. Then the emperor would come and just write down. If he sees a horizontal, he'll write, okay, I know. If he sees a vertical, he'll be like, okay, continue discussing. And this is how she became more and more powerful within the system. And so you kind of have this situation in this section where this is a relatively weak and not very successful guy who had a lot of women that outsourced most of his work to this a woman who had his son, and then the southern side. So if you draw the Chinese map at the time, so Hong Kong is here, Shanghai is here, Beijing is here. China was substantially bigger than now. So China was like this size, and this is not ours anymore. This is not ours anymore. So you can think like the shaded area is basically the areas that we'll get into later. This is Japan. So the shaded area is basically like the size of the Qing Dynasty. It was bigger than today, and this is the areas that we've lost through the late Qing period. But what you can see is, Beijing here, and then we're in a situation where the southern side at the time is the Taiping Rebellion, which is south of the Changjiang area, that we'll talk about in the next period. That was happening concurrently. So with this situation.